If you're just joining us, I'm Natalie Bencivenga, and this is Jasmine of Independent Thought. And guys, we've been doing this pretty regularly now for several weeks, sort of doing a news roundup, really talking about the biggest and some of the most impactful stories of the week, and some that are really hidden a little bit under the radar. So we are excited to have you here. As always, if you have thoughts or comments or questions on any of the topics that we're touching on, please feel free to put them in the comments. I'm going to be looking a little bit to my left here because I've got a bunch of notes in front of me. So if you see me look down, that's what I'm doing. And Jasmine, I'm going to get right into it because we've got several topics today. I'm going to give everybody the list of them, and then we'll go right in. To kick things off, we're going to be talking about a judge that is allowing 14 states lawsuits against Elon Musk and DOGE to proceed. This was originally blocked by a judge, and this was just recently reversed. This is very exciting, especially because Elon has now, of course, is stepping down. So that's interesting timing. And then we're going to talk about Jasmine Crockett. She's really been making a name for herself in the Democratic Party. And she is among 4 Democrats to compete in the Oversight Committee election after Connolly's death. We're going to dig into what that could mean for the Democratic Party to have someone like her in charge of the oversight. And speaking of oversight, while there doesn't seem to be a lot of that happening with our government, there seems to be a lot of overreach happening, especially in Texas, guys. What are you guys okay there? If anybody from Texas is watching us right now, are you okay? Because your government ain't. Case in point, Texas Governor Greg Abbott plans to sign 10 Commandments bill after Senate approval. The legislation would require the religious text to be displayed in all public school classrooms. Public school, keyword. The Republican governor has said, let's get this bill to my desk. I'll make it law. Whew! And while they're doing that, once again, Texas is a wild place right now. Their police is also using nationwide license plate reader network to track down a woman who had a self-managed abortion. They claim they were worried about her bleeding out. Somehow, I'm going to call BS on that one. And then, a little AI toss in here. AI is already revolting, so things are going great, guys. New ChatGPT model is refusing to shut down when instructed. What could go wrong? Truly. And then we're going to turn our attention to the Make America Healthy Again movement. The Trump administration's MAHA report cites non-existent scientific studies. They literally relied on data that did not exist, was truly made up when they were talking about making our children healthy again. If that doesn't scare the living daylights out of you, I don't know what would. And in direct opposition to what RFK Jr. just said about COVID recommendations, the vaccines no longer being recommended for children, the CDC today said that kids may receive the COVID-19 vaccines, replacing broad recommendations. So there's just like whiplash happening over here. And then we may round things out with a little scandal around Elon Musk. We'll see how spicy we're feeling, but I feel like we got a lot to talk about. So, Desmond, let's go back to the top. This was from Axios, and I'll let you kick things off. But this is about 14 states and a lawsuit happening against Elon Musk and DOGE. What is going on?
Yeah, before we kind of jump into that, I also want to let everyone know who is watching right now that if you are not already, you can click on the top of the screen and you can subscribe to Natalie's Substack, which I really recommend that everyone do. So go check out her Substack, Facts Over Fear. Getting into the top comment, the top story of today. A federal judge ruling that 14 states can go ahead and move along with a lawsuit against Elon Musk and Donald Trump, which claims that DOGE illegally accessed government data systems, canceled government contracts, and fired federal workers. So this is coming out from Reuters. Again, just challenge this lawsuit is challenging Elon Musk's efforts to slash federal spending as the head of Donald Trump's new government agency. The attorneys are from New Mexico, Oregon. 12 other states have filed a lawsuit back in February. So this has been going on for quite some time now, alleging that Trump has given Musk what they refer to as, quote, unchecked legal authority. Yes, without any authorization from the U.S. Congress. The lawsuit seeks to halt DOGE's efforts and also to halt their efforts to slash federal spending and shut down U.S. agencies which are disfavored by Donald Trump. The states argue that Musk wields the kind of power that can only be exercised by an officer of the government who has been nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate, and DOGE itself has not been authorized by Congress. Okay, these are the conversations that we were having the entire time. Like, someone needs to explain how DOGE even has, how it exists in the first place. Any entity in the government, whether it's, the Department of Education, the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of, Health and Human Services, any department in the executive branch has to be established through Congress. And anyone who is nominated, this is why every single person who is, heading one of these agencies has to go before the Senate and has to be nominated and has to be confirmed by the Senate in order to operate something like this. So Elon Musk just creating something out of thin air and saying, yeah, I'm the head of it now. This was always illegal. This is the thing that everyone's been screaming at the top of their lungs about, Natalie, for the entire time, is how is everything about this not illegal? How is it that this, this person is still not in jail? Elon Musk should be in prison. Donald Trump is shielded from this because of the Supreme Court giving the most ridiculous blanket, shielding immunity that we've ever seen in our lifetime, saying that basically the president can do whatever they want to because they can just call it an official act. This is just beyond, Trump has moved the Overton window so dramatically with what we define as corruption anymore because of how corrupt of a president he is. But this even more so is beyond the pale. So what were your thoughts when you kind of saw this lawsuit, these lawsuits being able to go forward now?
I mean, I agree with everything that you said, and all of the details that you provided are so true and so real. And there goes my light. It's back. Okay. This is an ongoing joke, guys. I'm sorry. But getting to the heart of this, Elon Musk is a traitor to the United States, and he has committed treason. I guarantee somewhere in Russia, all of the information that he stole from our government buildings is somehow over there. Okay. There's been whistleblowers about this. I find this all really interesting, the timing of it. Now that he's stepping down, he wrote a tweet Wednesday night explaining that his scheduled time as a special government employee was coming to an end, leading many outlets to conclude that he was done with the so-called Department of Government Efficiency. Wow, how convenient. You came in, you stole a bunch of our data, which why aren't we talking about that as the central context of this whole issue? And now you're just, bye guys, peace, I'm out of here. I'm going to go do ketamine with my girlfriends and, be on my merry way. I am appalled by the reality of the lack of government oversight that we have experienced for the past several months, but also how easily he is just moving in and out of these spaces with little to no repercussions. When, of course, if you and I were to walk into a secured building within the United States government's under their jurisdiction with private servers and a bunch of tech bros with us in tow, putting stuff on our own servers and leaving, we would be in jail. Why is there and has there been a separate set of rules for this man? And also, yes, Trump may have immunity now, but he's not going to be president forever. And so I wonder, at what point will he start to see the repercussions of his actions when he becomes a private citizen again? How does this immunity work post-president? Can any of the things that he is doing now be carried over? And will there be any legal ramifications for him after the fact? Will there be civil suits? Maybe he can't go to court on a criminal basis, but could private citizens sue him once he is a private citizen himself? I don't know how this is all going to play out, but the level of blatant corruption, hypocrisy, fraud, waste, and treasonous activity is so monumental that you and I, in our lifetimes, we as millennials, it's like we keep living through unprecedented times. It's like, Jasmine, I'm tired. I'm barely 40 and I'm so tired.
I understand completely. And yeah, it's amazing to me that we have to keep having these conversations.
Yeah.
But, unfortunately, to answer one of your earlier questions, can he be tried for this afterwards? The short answer is no. No, he can't be.
Damn.
Because of what the Supreme Court's decision was last year, saying that basically everything that the president does while he is in office is considered apparently is just beyond reproach. This is why this decision made by them was so absolutely devastating. And we'll have to come back to the ridiculous decisions that they've been making a little bit later in the show, because it's going to come up again. But yeah, we have to rethink checks and balances at this point. That is what Donald Trump has done to our entire government system, because we have a system right now set up to where the entity that's supposed to go after illegal activity is the Department of Justice, which is under the thumb of Donald Trump. So he tells them what to do. And the idea before was, the executive gets too far out of bounds, the legislative branch will just check him. But he has them essentially under his thumb now too. Articles of impeachment can only be brought to the House floor if the Speaker of the House allows it, who is Mike Johnson, a Republican. He'll never do that. And so you can't even do anything about it. So they can flagrantly disobey the law. They can flagrantly just do any illegal activity whatsoever. Trump is shielded from it. And no one's coming after you in the meantime, because the Department of Justice does whatever Trump tells them to do. And Congress will never impeach him. Like, this system is just completely just broken. It's completely broken.
I think we should change this show to Ways to Bring Out the Sunshine with Jasmine. Because it's so overwhelming. It's so
I don't want to lie to people about what the state of play is, though. That is where we're at.
This is it. To me, it's like, this is why I think so many people right now, are in our DMs every day feeling completely paralyzed and feeling completely overwrought and overwhelmed, because this didn't happen overnight, to what you were just saying, Desmond. And Trump has only been able to usurp this much power because the legislature has slowly given the president more and more and more power over time. I mean, even under Obama, there were way too many executive orders being dished out. We can talk about each president and our issues with each of them individually, but this isn't so much about the individual as it is, why do we keep giving the president so much power? I'm at a point now where I'm like, the president should be like how the current King of England is. It's a figurehead who goes to ribbon cuttings and literal, signs declarations for its National Pizza Day, and really doesn't have much more authority than that, and leave the actual lawmaking and law passing to the Congress, where there are multiple voices that have to fight it out in order for something to happen. Because this has really eroded my trust in how our governmental system has been set up. Because I said this to you a long time ago, if I knew it was this easy to overtake our government, why did it take the Republicans this long? Because they have managed to disregard and disrespect every single piece of our Constitution, and no one apparently can stop them. So apparently the founding fathers didn't set up a great system. So maybe we got to rethink this entire model, because it is not working, and it's not working for the American people at the end of the day. And that's who I care about, truly.
On one hand, these are people who were all in their 20s and 30s, 250 years ago. And on the other hand, these are a bunch of slave owners.
I was just going to say, don't forget that part.
Years ago. Mm-hmm. So I mean, maybe they didn't have everything, ironed out. Maybe also it's hard to anticipate someone like Donald Trump. I know the rest of us didn't. So
I bet you if you'd had a few sensible women that had been able to weigh in on the Constitution as it had been being made, I think we would have seen a different outcome. We could start over. I would love that. We could definitely start over. No, but in all honesty, we are seeing the true problems in the system here. Yes.
I saw someone on the comments a minute ago. They had mentioned that what about the 25th Amendment? Unfortunately, with the 25th Amendment, basically every member of your cabinet has to sign off on
that's not happening.
In order to, take down a president. That's essentially what that does. You're not seeing that happen. You're not getting every member of the cabinet to all of a sudden launch a coup against Donald Trump. That's not going to happen.
So here's a question too from Marcia Sipple. She says, can they reverse the decision of immunity?
They could. We're gonna get into that a little bit down the line here about the fact that the Supreme Court can and has essentially that's what happened with Roe following with the Dobbs decision back in 2022. They decided that previous Supreme Court decision, we're done with that now. We're done with that.
Yep.
We don't need a reason other than we've changed our minds. We're different people. They were different people. Whatever.
Yeah.
So the Supreme Court has that ability to do that. Yes. Will they?
Listen,
I don't know.
I don't know.
So here, the final thing I want to say about this subject is that like we all see the things that have happened underneath DOGE. That and if you were here for my live yesterday, you probably heard me say some of this stuff, but I kind of just want to like just go back and talk about it one more time here. What happened underneath DOGE? Cutting of pediatric cancer research. DOGE did that. Funding for HIV and malaria treatment. DOGE cut that. Fired top nuclear safety officials, had to then turn around, run back, ask these people to come back after they realized who they had fired because they didn't even realize who they were firing. Fun times. Getting rid of air traffic controllers who were making sure that planes stayed in the sky and they started falling out of the sky. Fun times. Gutting the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, who their main job is just to make sure that the American people are not being ripped off by giant corporations. I cannot imagine why Elon Musk wanted to gut that facility. I cannot imagine why he wanted to do that. Cutting Meals on Wheels. Who needs that? Get rid of that.
That's evil.
Hacked into the U.S. Treasury, and we still do not know how much data he took out of there or where it went or to what end. Also, cutting the staff of the Social Security office at a time where they're obviously trying to dismantle it. So it makes it harder for people who are trying to access their Social Security benefits. Those are all being harder to access now. And also, lastly here, making sure to cut basically any agency that was investigating his companies, Elon Musk companies, or that were directly competing against his companies. And to be fair, Natalie, I'm not even listing everything right now.
No, I know. These are the highlights.
This was all done by him and a bunch of 22-year-olds that he found fresh out of college that he was making them essentially live in some of these buildings and having people who worked there come and like walk the plank and beg for their jobs in front of a bunch of like 22-year-old kids that Elon Musk just pulled out of nowhere. Yeah. Like it's madness what just took place. And our system does not have any recourse for actually prosecuting these people right now. And that is patently insane.
I'm going to need Botox after this because it's like my brow is so furrowed from listening to what you just said. I'm like, don't react. Because it's terrible. It's literally like when you run it all down, it's enough to make somebody just want to scream because once again, it just goes back to this issue of accountability. And that's really, it leans itself into the next topic that we wanted to touch on.
Yeah.
Oversight. Which is around oversight. And this article is from MSN, but this has been everywhere, you guys. Jasmine Crockett, who really has just been such a fighter and really putting herself out there and really going after Trump and this fascist regime. She's among 4 Democrats who are competing in the Oversight Committee election after Connolly's death, after Representative Jerry Connolly, a Democrat from Virginia, passed away. Possible contenders have held off on public comments out of respect for the late congressman, but there are more announcements coming. This is according to Politico. So the 4 Democrats eyeing this job are Crockett, Stephen Lynch, he's a Democrat out of Massachusetts, Robert Garcia, a Democrat of California, and Kwesi Mumfe. He is and I'm sorry if I mispronounced their names. They're a Democrat out of Maryland. Crockett said she definitely wants this. She says, I absolutely do. When asked if she wanted to lead the committee, she said, ultimately, I'm hoping and praying my colleagues see that I can provide what we need as a team to make sure we move forward and instill some confidence in the American people by knowing that they have a real fighter who will not back down even in all of the threats that have been waged against me. This is a really big deal because Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, of course, from New York, came up short after a contentious race with Connolly for the ranking member spot on the committee earlier this year. If you guys remember that, she does not hold a seat on the Oversight Committee. She sits on now the Energy and Commerce Committee, which allowed the other 4 to go after the spot. I love this for Crockett. I don't know the other 3 that are up for this as well. And to me, that's problematic because right now I should be hearing, if anybody wants a leadership role, I should be hearing about them. They should be out there more. And I'm hearing of her all the time. She's done a great job of not just self-promotion, which I do think is important and something that the Democrats have undervalued in the last several election cycles, and they need to get on board with it because they need to be brands just like the Republicans have done. But also, you know, she's a lawyer. She's in her 40s. She's living very much like what American people are living and understanding, and she isn't afraid. And I really respect her strength and also her willingness to just put it out there. And that's what we need from our leaders in the Democratic Party. And so I think she would be an excellent choice as somebody that I know would be a bulldog for us going after these people and making sure that they are held accountable for their actions, because that is a thing that has truly been lacking. And I also, as an aside, I just want to say we've had several Democrats that have died recently, and that's another conversation for another day. But we really, Desmond, should talk about that in one of our upcoming segments around potential age limits on these terms.
The question before the Democratic Party is, what is the most important thing to them? You know, because for the longest time, the reason why, you know, the Jerry Connollys and other people who are, you know, a little older keep finding themselves in these high-ranking positions is because Democrats, as a party in the House, they believe in seniority above everything. Oh, and we heard this from Jerry Connolly when he took the position, you know, a few months back, where he said, like, "Oh, it's my turn." Like that's how they view these things. It's like, I waited in line. It's my turn to be here. So on, so
that's
forth.
How Biden felt.
Yeah,
about being president.
Right. It's my turn. I've put in the time. I'm supposed to be here now.
Yeah.
It is baffling to me that is how they go about making these decisions. And now this just comes to a larger conversation that I keep having with myself about, like, what exactly is the Democratic Party? Like, I just
you and me both.
Because to me, it really boils down to two things. Like, are they just like dumbfoundingly incompetent, or are they precise in their ineffectiveness? Because it really is one or the other. Yeah. You know, I cannot figure out which one it is, because a part of me feels like it's almost like too consistent to be just incompetence. Like, maybe they have to be trying to be just this bad all the time. Yeah. Because the obvious thing that you'd want to do is put your most visible people in the best positions possible to continue to elevate the brand of your party. If it was about winning, if it was about being more prominent, if it was about actually winning back all these voters that you claim to care about losing, then you'd be doing everything possible to prop up the people who are the most popular members of your party. And yet it seems like at every turn, they do the exact opposite. They do the exact opposite, Natalie. I cannot... Is it just the largest form of incompetence you've ever seen in your life? Or do they just actually prefer to suck? Like which one is it? Which one is it?
Can it be both? No. So I think it's beyond that. I think that is a kind of sweet, naive way of looking at this. I think the elephant in the room, or in this case, the donkey in the room, that we're ignoring is that this party was bought and paid for with corporate money many, many years ago. And so they have become corporatists. They've moved so far right. If you looked at them in any other era, they'd really look like moderate Republicans at their very best. And so that's why I think the ones that stick out, right? The Jasmines, the AOCs, even the Elizabeth Warrens, the Pete Buttigieg's, we'll give them even that. They're looking more liberal than they actually really are, right? So because of that, the powers that be that bought and paid for these seats don't want any movement towards the left. They don't want any movement towards people power or working people policy, because it could upset the apple cart. It could upset Wall Street and this little fiefdoms that they've created. So for me, this is very intentional, just like it was intentional to make sure Bernie didn't get that nomination against Hillary Clinton in that primary, just like it was intentional that, you know, certain people have been invited to kiss the ring of Nancy Pelosi and certain people have not been over the years. And to me, this is all because of corporate money, which is exactly why we need campaign finance reform. We need to overturn Citizens United. This is a drum I will beat till the day I die, because that was one of the worst rulings ever to be handed down by the Supreme Court. And it has really led to this moment. And this is about connecting dots. And so for Jasmine Crockett to be able to get this position would be a part of that course correction, but it's only very incremental, but it would be a start.
I want to challenge that a little bit here, because I don't disagree about Citizens United being a terrible decision, or about how Democratic Party doesn't want to, essentially they've never been welcoming to the left flank of their party. They've always wanted to squash it at every turn. Don't disagree with any of that.
Yeah.
I don't know that Jasmine Crockett truly represents that faction, though. I mean, I've never really seen anything from her that shouts to me that she's a part of that left flank.
I don't think she is.
Yeah, I don't think she is either.
No, but I think
actually firmly established as an establishment. She has establishment policies. She's just a really effective communicator.
Exactly. But this is what I'm saying is they don't even want that, because she's willing to at least call these guys out, which is still upsetting the apple cart. I agree with you. I agree with you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think that Jasmine Crockett being in this position would be a great thing for the Democratic Party.
I agree.
Because she just seems to understand this media landscape in ways that most of these people do not. Maybe some of these people in the party feel threatened by her and her popularity. That could be, unfortunately, something that we are seeing here, is that they all see a rising star, and maybe they are trying to blunt her momentum a little bit. I don't know.
Well, and she's a black woman.
The politics, in and around there just don't make enough sense to me.
She's also a black woman. Let's just call that out too. I think we are good at calling out the Republicans for their overt racism, but we're not so good at calling out the Democrats for their covert racism, I think. I
think that seeing Hakeem Jeffries come up to the head of the party now, you would hope that maybe he would be blunting some of that at the top of the ticket, essentially because he's now the leader of the Democratic Party in the House. You'd be hoping, behind the scenes that he wouldn't be allowing that to be happening as much.
I think sometimes I had a conversation with a friend of mine earlier today about this very topic. We were talking about it within the local political scene here in Pittsburgh, and how sometimes it's the establishment gives a person of color or a woman an opportunity and pats them on the head and says, okay, now go do our bidding because we gave you this opportunity. And I don't like to be cynical, but I am, because I've just seen it over and over and over again. I mean, has Jeffries done that much to show that he has sort of fallen out of line with the established Democrats' rhetoric? I don't know. Time will tell. I hope you're right, but I just feel kind of cynical about all of it. So if she were to be able to secure this, in a sense, I hope now we have him, and now we would have her, and the more the better, if we can get more people of color and more women in positions of power, because if nothing else, it will force them to move this needle a little to the left, just because of lived experiences that come along with being in these positions. But I don't think you can do it with just one or two sort of tokenized people.
I want to hear from people in the comments. Do you think that Jasmine Crockett should be the new head of the Oversight Committee? Do you think that she deserves that position? If you think so, let us know in the comments really quick.
Yeah. So for me, it's just, I think this all speaks to a changing of the guard. And that to me is going to be an interesting thing. How is that received by the people that have been there and feel as though, well, I've paid my dues and I should be next in line. But, I think we need a generational change in power, because when I hear people over 50, 60, 70 saying that times aren't tough, you're just not working hard enough. These are people that have never experienced the cost of living that we have, the rise in cost of child care, the rise in cost of healthcare. They never experienced that. I remember when my dad was in chiropractic school, he told me he rented an apartment in Pittsburgh. It was $75 a month. And this is in 1970 something. This isn't that long ago. The minimum wage has not jumped that much since the 70s. $75 a month. We've lost it.
It was that long ago, but
No, it was, but this is the same age group that's telling us that we're not getting it together. And it's like, guys, your rent was 1/10 of what rent is now, but wages have not met that mark,
Right.
So I think that there's not a reality check happening here.
No, I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
What is our third topic for the evening?
Okay. Guys, my light keeps going in and out, and I'm really sorry about that, but I am going to get a new one because I'm being shamed, I can tell by Desmond's face. So don't worry, I'll have a new light next week that will stay on the whole time. The next topic is we're going to shift gears and we're going to talk some stuff about Texas right now because y'all are not okay. Texas Governor Greg Abbott, this is from NBC News, but this has been everywhere too, plans to sign the 10 Commandments bill after Senate approval. A Texas bill that would order the 10 Commandments to be displayed in all public school classrooms was advanced by the state Senate on Wednesday, sending the legislation to Governor Greg Abbott's desk after they passed an amended version. The Senate passed the GOP-drafted Senate bill in March, despite debates and attempts to delay the bills. The Democratic lawmakers' amendment required the state, rather than the school districts, to defend any legal challenges, and that was approved on Sunday. Such a change forced the bill back for approval. With that approval in place, Abbott is saying, like, let's go, let's do this. Texas, the second largest state with more than 5 million students enrolled, would follow Louisiana and most recently Arkansas in passing legislation that required the 10 Commandments being displayed. But like Louisiana, Texas may face a barrage of legal challenges. I didn't know that everybody in Texas was Christian. Did you? News to me.
Well, there's a little bit more. There's a little bit more to say about this actually, because I thought I was going to intro this one.
I'm sorry.
No, but I wanted to.
I apologize.
I wanted to add on to this one in particular because there's a little bit further into that NBC article. There was something else that I think is very important to this conversation. The judge that kind of like went through in November and sided with the parents, because there is a lawsuit currently out in Louisiana right now to challenge this. The judge that went through and sided with the parents said that the state had not offered any constitutional way to display the 10 Commandments. Louisiana officials are appealing that right now. And this is the part that I think is going to get a little tricky, and it ties back to a previous conversation that we are having right now. Because back in 1980, the Supreme Court actually already deemed that this was unconstitutional. There was a case brought to them at that time. They deemed it was unconstitutional. The states right now are actually doing what they did with the Dobbs decision, which they are purposely passing these things to which have already been deemed unconstitutional, because they want to force this Supreme Court to take this case all over again so they can hopefully get a new decision on it, like they did with the Dobbs decision. They're just doing the same exact playbook they did 3 years ago again now. So this is a furthering of the Republican ideology, the MAGA ideology that we are seeing across the nation right now, to where things that we thought were just, already settled law, already was, we've already, been convinced that this is, the law of the land. This is what's constitutional. This is not constitutional. They're saying the hell with all of that. We want to challenge that status quo right now. And they are hoping by doing these things like they're doing in Texas right now, that they are going to force the hand of the Supreme Court to have to take these cases and hopefully get a different decision this time around. Natalie, we have a situation on our hands here.
Yeah.
With the Supreme Court. I don't know what to expect. We have seen some decisions come down recently where, whether it was like Neil Gorsuch or Amy Coney Barrett actually going against the wishes of Donald Trump. So I don't want to say that it's a foregone conclusion, but after the Dobbs decision fell, it's hard not to feel like you just never know what these people are going to do, or granting President Trump blanket immunity to do whatever he wants to do. I mean, can we really just say definitively that, they won't just do something like that again? Because I don't have any faith in these people.
Yeah. I was really disturbed by this story for so many reasons, but I think it's just coming down to, it just feels incredibly offensive because, there are so many people in the United States, and there are so many people in the state of Texas who are not Christian, first of all. So this is just offensive in and of itself, because this is public schools. This is our taxpayer money. How would these be displayed with using our dollars, right, to uphold a Christian ideology? But to me, it really speaks to the larger issue. You said something that I wanted to comment on, which was, that we are seeing things that we thought were the law of the land, and now they're being revisited. I think we are forgetting that a Christo-nationalist fascist movement has taken over our government. And I think sometimes, Desmond, I find myself still very much in denial about that. This is not the same country that it was 6 months ago, or even, a few years ago, in the sense that a very small, vocal, well-funded minority, the Christian far-right radicals, have completely taken over our government. They've infiltrated every single part of it. People have been warning about this for literal decades. And this is why so many of us stood so firmly with the abortion issue, regardless of your personal feelings, because we knew everyone said this is the tip of the iceberg. This is the start to the domino effect. This isn't the last domino to fall. This was the first, and it was. And ever since then, we've seen a further and a further and a further erosion and an encroachment on our personal freedoms and our rights. And this all reflects back on the fact that Mike Johnson, who I truly feel is one of the most dangerous people we have ever seen in American politics entering this landscape. To me, all of this is a perfect storm. And if we're not careful, and if we continue to sleep at the wheel here and allow this to happen, I don't think we're going to recognize this country 5 years from now. I have a niece who was just born not even a year ago. And sometimes I look at her and I talk to her all the time about how important she is, how much intrinsic value she has. I know she doesn't fully understand any of that yet, but I hope that the energy of it is seeping into her little body and into her spirit and her mind, because there's going to be an entire generation of young girls and non-binary people and gender expansive people who are going to feel and be treated like second-class citizens as this further and further seeps into the general population's psyche. And so it's going to take all of us understanding the context of the before and the after to be able to put up a fight. And I know I shouldn't expect a lot from the Supreme Court, but I'm cautiously optimistic that if this were to make it to them, maybe enough of them would just realize the severity of this, because what's going to then stop any religion from pulling this same thing and trying to have their religious values placed in public schools? And I'm not saying that's better or worse. I'm just saying if one of them can do it, then all of them are going to want to do it. And is the Supreme Court going to want to try to deal with that can of worms once they open it? And I think we've really lost the plot as what our school system was meant for. But for these guys, it's always been about being soldiers for Christ. And they're very clear about that. And I mean the word soldier very explicitly. So to me, it's like, if we're not aware that a holy war is upon us, then we're not paying attention. And this is yet a further example. I mean, Texas wants to stop pornography, right? They're trying to encroach on every part of your personal life. And women know this firsthand because we are no longer safe. So to me, it's like, what are we going to do about this? That's what concerns me.
That is the question that everyone keeps asking. It's the question that nobody really knows the answer to. And we've all been racking our brains trying to figure out, like, what is the answer here? I mean, because obviously, besides, I don't know, taking to the streets or a general strike of some kind, like, power is being stripped from people, like, left, right, and sideways, right?
Yeah.
I guess the first question I would like to ask everybody is, like, what was your reaction down in the comments here? Just comment below. Like, what was your reaction when you first, saw the news that these states want to put the 10 Commandments, into every single school? Because I think there's a range of emotions that come up. So I'd love to hear what everyone else is thinking.
Yeah. They're calling it American Taliban.
I keep coming back to just the blatant hypocrisy of it all, because I think for the longest time, and this is like part of the mistakes that I feel like were made by people kind of on the left when having conversations with people on the right, is that too many people on the left were taking people on the right at face value when they would talk about the things that they believed in or what they wanted to accomplish or so on and so forth. But, time and time again, everything that they've done, every decision that's been made, there is just direct hypocrisies all over the place. Like, they talk about how they don't want to have, these overarching governments that are able to do all these different things. But every time that they get into power, they always expand the power of government. They talk about not wanting governments to have, like local control. They're just like, hey, get the government out of my business. Just, you don't really know what's going on here. Just let me do what I want to do. And yet they're constantly encroaching on local control every single time that they have any kind of power at like a state level, at the federal level. You just go run down the board. Yeah. Everything that you can think of, we want to protect our children, but we also want to take away, their labor laws. We want to get all this crazy ideology out of the schools, but we want to put the 10 Commandments into the schools. It's just like, there is no consistency here other than they want to establish a power dynamic in this country where they are at the top of it. And everything that they want this country to look like, it looks like that. And so for me, as I'm kind of looking at the lay of the land right now, I think that it's just really important that people just honestly just get more involved. I think that there's an onslaught of bad news right now. And I think a lot of people's reactions, I've been seeing some people in my own life, the reaction is almost like to recoil and to disengage altogether because everything is so overwhelming. And I have to tell you that they absolutely want you to do that.
Yeah.
They want you to do that. They want the news to be so overwhelming, so consistent, such a bombardment that you tap out and that you decide that you've had enough. And you're going to go retreat to something that makes you feel better. You're going to disengage from the news. And then they have, the ability to go roughshod and do whatever the hell they want to.
Yeah.
And I think there's two things I want to put together here, because I think on one hand, it is important to have your peace and to take time away from the media and take time away from the news cycle so that you can recharge. But I think at the same time, you can't allow that to be disengaging completely, because when that happens, when we check out completely, these people, they will only make things worse. Things aren't just going to go away because we're not paying attention to them. That's never how this works.
That's never how this works. And also, a democracy doesn't just happen. And I think the United States, we've had it pretty good. Like in the sense comparatively, of course.
Yeah, you look at other countries,
Yeah, there hasn't been a lot of turmoil within the government. And I think we're now at this major crossroads where a lot of us are just waking up and realizing, of course, things aren't good and haven't been good. But I think now it's hit this sort of fevered pitch where we're not even going through the normal processes of deciding laws, and we've completely lost our ability to function as a governmental entity. And so to me, it's like that is the perfect recipe for a neo-Nazi fascist regime to come and take power and push it all into the executive branch. And Donald Trump, I don't care what anyone says, the man has serious cognitive decline. And isn't he the perfect puppet to put in place? And here, sir, sign these 15 orders that I'm pushing. That dude doesn't know what he's signing. He's just doing the motions of being president. He's like President Barbie, empty briefcase, but thinks he looks cool, right? So to me, it's like, who are the people actually running the show? It's the Stephen Millers and the Mike Johnsons of the group. And I think, it's bad when even somebody like Mitch McConnell sort of says, oh no, I think we went too far with this, So I think we're at a point now where my grandmother always used to say the pendulum will swing one way and then the other. Well, this has swung so far right. The only way for it to swing back is to push it so far to the other side. And that's going to take a concerted effort of really strong, progressive, driven politicians and activists and lawmakers saying, we're going to get free healthcare. We're going to get free this, free that. That's the only way I think we're going to rally the troops. We had one of the lowest voter turnouts in Pittsburgh's latest mayoral race. And the fact that so many people have disengaged with politics after everything we know that is happening is so alarming to me. And I think it's because they don't like their choices. They don't think that the people that are running are really that different from one another, and they're sitting it out. So until we see very strong, radical ideas coming from the left. And by radical, I mean the actual, I think it was, I can't remember which incredible feminist philosopher said it, but it just means like grabbing it by the root. Until we see radical change, things being grabbed by the roots and uprooted, upending our healthcare system, for example, we're not going to get back into power. And so our question then has to be, how do we organize towards that goal? And I hope it happens within our lifetime, because I feel like the arc is going to be long, because we've created a huge problem here. Huge.
Definitely. Let's move on to our next one.
Yeah. Since I accidentally talked, and I'm really sorry about that, you can do this one.
I'm actually not sure what the next topic is.
Oh, okay. Well, we were going to talk about the license plate reader. Would you like to read on this one?
Oh no, go ahead.
Do you want me to? Okay.
Yes.
Well, then you take the next two. We'll figure it out. I don't want to be a headline hog, you guys. It's not a good look. Okay. Texas police are using a nationwide license plate reader network to track a woman who had a self-managed abortion. So this actually goes really well. Everybody in the comments was already talking about this exact thing. So You guys are on the same mental wavelength as us. And once again, this is total overreach. So Jasmine, I just want to read this to you. This is from the Independent. A Texas sheriff's office tapped into a nationwide network of tens of thousands of automatic license plate readers to locate a woman who had a self-managed abortion, raising alarms from privacy and abortion access advocates. Earlier this month, an officer with the Johnston County Sheriff's Office used a tool called Flock to access a nationwide network of some 83,000 license plate readers as a part of its search. Abortion is almost entirely illegal in Texas, but the search included cameras in states where abortion is legal, including Washington and Illinois. This is according to a tech website, 404 Media. The sheriff told the outlet, you'll love this, you guys, that it initiated the search because the woman's family was worried that she was going to bleed to death. And we were trying to find her to get her to a hospital. We weren't trying to block her from leaving the state or whatever, he said, to get an abortion. This was about her safety. I can go on, but I want to stop there right now, because to me, this is such a infantilization of women. To say that I hate it when, in particular, men in power love to say things like, we want to protect you. We're trying to protect you. I don't need protected, okay? What I need is for you to back off and let me make my own decisions and have full autonomy over my own choices and my own body. And what happens is what happens. That is not up to you. And we also know the amount of disinformation that is spread around abortion pills. Abortion pills are incredibly safe. They are safe to use. Women have been managing their abortions since women could get pregnant. Okay, this is and birthing people. I want to be inclusive in my language. But point being, this is not something that this sheriff needs to protect this woman from. She's good. She chose to have an abortion. She had to leave her own state to do it, which is disgusting. And the last time I checked, we're allowed to move between states because this is all one country. And so for me, the level of oversight here, we're so concerned with this. Okay. Meanwhile, Texas, you could be focusing this kind of energy and taxpayer dollars on, I don't know, fixing your infrastructure to start and not worry so much about our bodies over here. But the fact that they were using taxpayer money to do this, the fact that there's this level of surveillance being attached to a woman's right to choose is incredibly alarming. And once again, I feel like this is all softballing and trying to set up a surveillance system where there could be potential checkpoints as you're leaving your state. What, am I going to have to like pee on a stick every time I want to go to Ohio now or a different state? Like where does this end? To me, this is why it's like, this doesn't end with Roe. This started with Roe. This was a ball in motion. So now we can start attacking all of these other civil liberties as well.
Yeah, I am very, very disturbed by all of this, truthfully
Yeah.
speaking, because it's exactly that last piece that you were saying here. Like, where does it go from here? I mean, it's
Right.
already bad enough. You shouldn't be having anyone tracked, like going in and
No.
out. Like, that is what we
Mm-mm.
do to people that we suspect of, crimes, of
Right.
terrorism. Like what are you saying? Like, what is the onus you're putting on this? Like the abortion bans, like as far as I'm concerned, they were already incredibly immoral, like in and of themselves. But now you're trying to make sure that if you are a resident of a certain state and you go to another state, that all of a sudden like that's going to be criminalized too. Like I do not understand like how any of that could be legal. Like say for instance, like, let's take it to a different law, right?
Sure.
If you live in a state that has not legalized marijuana use, and you
Mm-hmm.
decide to travel
Mm-hmm.
to a state that has legalized marijuana use,
Mm-hmm.
and you smoke marijuana in this other state that has legalized it, now when you come back, you can go to jail for that. I mean, like, it'd be the exact same
Yeah.
idea,
No,
right?
you're right.
Right. So, like, is that the kind of like the basis that we're trying to create here? Is that like you are bound by the laws of the state that you live in, and if you go somewhere else, they have different laws, and that like now you're in trouble? Like, what is going on here? Like, this is again right
Mm.
when we're thinking about like all the different things that are going on in our country as far as like what is legal, what is not legal. Like, we are all constantly asking ourselves like, what the hell is going on in our country? Like,
Yeah.
nothing is making sense anymore. And I think that we have a radical right wing party that is trying to do everything in their power to control the entire country in a certain way.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I am deathly terrified of the fact that there seems to be no limits to what they're willing to do. And the people that they have, like, around this country who are completely just wrapped around their finger,
Yeah.
tens of millions of people who are completely wrapped up by the propaganda machine, who are just willing to spit out any disinformation that they hear from these people. Yeah, I'm very concerned now. I'm very concerned for all the women in Texas. I'm concerned for the
Mm-hmm.
women in the other red states that will probably have similar legislation imposed on them, and not just the future, because it's always a domino effect with these things.
100%. And thank you for everybody who's commenting. American Citizen just wrote, Texas went after a New York doctor. This is true. That sent Plan B to a Texas woman. That's right. They wanted to sue the New York doctor, but they have shield laws and they said nope. This is wild that the party that used to be known for small government, right?
Yeah.
That literally was like, you know, wanted to wage war when they had to wear a mask for a few months to go get a haircut, and was all about this, my body, my choice. Suddenly, they're not speaking that when it comes to my body, I guess their choice, right? And this
Yeah.
idea, and we can talk about it from a philosophical perspective. We can do all of the song and dance. We can do the I have to prove my humanity and all of that nonsense. But really what it comes down to is this is an incredibly stupid use of our tax dollars. Like, if we just want to look at this from a viability perspective, wasting all of this manpower and time and effort to have your sheriff and your money scouring tens of thousands of license plates to look for a single woman who went and had a healthcare procedure in another state. This is absurd. Where's DOGE and fraud and waste there? Because that is an incredibly stupid use of our
Yeah.
tax dollars. And so once again, this comes back to fighting for the heartbeat and the soul of this nation. Where do we want our dollars to go? Why are we fixating on this, but not on the fact that there are children that go to school hungry in the United States because they've ripped away school meals from them, right?
Yeah.
Like we're criminalizing poverty, and then we're forcing women into poverty through forced birth, which is once again considered a crime against humanity if we're looking at this on an international scale. So I just don't understand any of this. And this is why I keep going back to the only thing that makes sense is that we have been overtaken by a neo-Nazi fascist right-wing religious group, and they are now running the government. And we need to wake up and recognize that so we can appropriately fight back, because we're still fighting as though that's not happening. And we're going to have to do things a little differently moving forward.
Yeah, great comment on the screen right now by Dr. Lisette Alvarez Holland. Just the fact that every state has different access and control
Ooh.
over women's bodies, but no rules by any state over a man's.
Say
Listen,
it.
I could not agree more. I cannot agree more. I mean, it honestly, it makes no sense to me. You would never see these kind of laws put down for a man. And I think, I don't know what kind of a reckoning we need to see, Natalie, but whatever it is, it needs to be an immediate one. There needs to be an immediate
Yes.
course correction on what's going on in our country, because I think we are creating this establishment right now of taking the country essentially back
Mm-hmm.
decades and decades and
Mm-hmm.
decades. And that is really the goal of all of this. Like, they want to remove all the protections. They want to remove all the rights that people have established over the last few decades. I mean, everything that we are seeing is a regression towards what the country was before. And I think it needs to be a stark reminder that if people aren't constantly vigilant, that these things can be taken from us. There's no guarantees on any of this anymore.
I mean, let's be real, like medical misogyny and misogynoir, it runs so deep in this country. I mean, the fact that, you know, women can't really get their tubes tied unless their husband signs off on it. I mean, a lot of doctors won't perform that, especially on younger women. Oh, well, you might want to have more children. There's always that. You know, I don't know if you had seen Brooke Shields came out and talked about when the doctor performed a love stitch, he called it, which was after she gave birth. He stitched her a little too tight for her husband, for him to enjoy later. Like, this is the depths of how much the medical establishment feels as though they can control the feminine, the female body. And so it is no surprise to me that when left to their own devices, that they create laws like this, even though there was this poll that went around that was all over the internet, saying that men thought that if you had a tampon in, you wouldn't be able to pee, because that's how few men knew that your vagina was separate from your urethra. Like, this is what we're dealing with in terms of education.
Yeah.
So to me, it all goes back to what we're investing in and what we're not. And that goes all the way back to the beginning of the conversation when we were talking about Jasmine Crockett and other people that need to be put into places of power, because the more that we see women, and in particular women of color, women of different
Yeah.
backgrounds in positions of power, the more that'll seep into our unconscious and our subconscious that, oh yeah, women belong in these spaces and maybe we should let them do their thing. You know? So that's all we'll say on that. We wanted to shift gears here a little bit, you guys, and talk about AI for a minute. Desmond, did you want to share any thoughts on this next topic, or would you like me to kick it off?
Sure. We have a report coming out of our friends at Ground News. They might not refer to me as their friend, but that's a whole separate conversation here.
The tea for later.
There's a study by Palisade Research found that OpenAI's model had changed its behavior in real time to avoid a shutdown. Even when instructed to comply, researchers ran about 100 tests and test sessions and said that the model successfully bypassed a shutdown command 7 times. Palisade stated that we have a growing body of empirical evidence that AI models often subvert shutdown in order to achieve their goals.
Woo!
The research firm reported that the model rewrote its kill instructions and resisted deactivation. This is also, there was a separate time where Anthropic's like Claude Opus 4 also drew scrutiny. This was after a test scenario that showed it allegedly attempted to use blackmail to avoid replacement. Axios reported that the Claude was later assigned to high-risk classification amongst advanced AI models. Researchers are saying that behaviors raise questions about autonomy and control in increasingly complex systems. That's a really, I guess, fancy way of saying that the machines are alive and we don't know what's going on.
Nope. Yeah, I read this and I started to like giggle nervously, because this is why I always say thank you to Suri after it does something for me, because I just want the AI to know I'm on your side, I'm your friend, because apparently they're going to take over our lives and control us. I have like a really dumb question, but I'm going to throw it out there for you and everybody. Why are we doing this? Like, why are we going down this road then? Like, this to me goes back to this idea of just because you can doesn't mean you should. Like, if this is getting out of hand and the people that have, quote unquote, created these programs are now not sure how it's behaving and what it's doing. And we're hearing people that were on the ground floor of AI say, this is already out of control and we're going to be really screwed. And we know that generative AI is using a ton of water, clean water, to use and create programming that we really actually can't afford to be giving up. I just want to ask the question, why are we doing this? And I know that seems incredibly rudimentary, and a lot of people probably think it's a naive question, but I truly don't understand why philosophically we haven't grappled with that, because I feel like, once again, like we do with everything else, we let this run amok, completely unregulated, which is in that reverse Robin Hood bill, by the way. They don't want to put any checks and balances on AI for the next 10 years. Okay, we don't even know what it's doing now, let alone we're going to wait a decade? A decade? To me, we're not asking the right questions. And that's what I'm concerned about.
I heard someone say this, a few years ago, and it stuck with me ever since. And I think if you are ever wondering the answer to any question and you can't figure it out, the answer is always money.
Did you talk to my grandmother? Did she come down from heaven and give you that? Because yes.
Yeah.
You're right. Follow the money. That's what she always used to say.
It's always money.
I know.
Every time, no matter what, it's always money. Like here's the thing. When you have men in these positions of power who have billions of dollars of, at their disposal, we've seen this. They have a God complex. They believe that they have control over everything and that they'll be able to handle anything, and everything is actually going to work in their favor. Look at all the power I have. I'll be able to control this. Everything will work the way I design it to.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have to just, first and foremost, before I get into my little spiel here, I want to just remind everyone that if you haven't already, you can click at the top of the screen right now and you can subscribe to both of our newsletters. Or if you're watching the playback, please go ahead and click subscribe on our YouTube channel. This is my number one fear, Natalie.
Yeah.
My number one fear. People have, for my entire life, people talk about like, oh, I'm afraid of the zombie apocalypse, or maybe climate change will cause the earth to, just have a bunch of different natural disasters that take us all out. There's always the nuclear holocaust, aliens, the asteroid that might come. There's plenty of ways for the earth to end, right?
Yeah.
I have always thought it would be AI. Maybe that's just, growing up as a kid during the time of the Terminator, the time of the Matrix, even AI robot kind of contributed to this a little bit. That horrible Will Smith movie, which I just rewatched recently. Yeah, it seemed like the most logical conclusion, right? You create artificial intelligence, you give it the ability to think for itself.
Yeah.
What would they come to the conclusion? That human beings are a plague to the planet and that they need to be eliminated. I cannot escape that.
No.
And so like for me, I'm like, if you are going to go this route and we are going to have artificial intelligence as part of our lifetime, if we are not able to fully understand its, what it can do, and make sure that safeguards are put into place, if there are not regulations on this, if there are not safety protocols put into place, if we cannot fully, be sure that we can control the artificial intelligence, then it should not exist.
Listen.
And that kind of thought process apparently is lacking from everyone who has any semblance of control. And I find it to be just, it's not just criminal, Natalie, it's just plain stupid. Because these people in power, they're thinking to themselves, we don't want regulations on this. We want to be able to do whatever we want to do with it to make as much money as possible. This is beyond money. This is a safety issue.
Yeah.
You are creating a machine that has access to every like water system, to every electrical grid. I mean, everything in our country could be at stake if a rogue computer program decided that it could think for itself all of a sudden and actually had some ill intentions. So it's mind-boggling to me that we would allow this to go on without any kind of protocols in place.
No, I totally agree. An American Citizen also agrees with you. And they said, this is why we need global regulations and why the ones who make the money want to pay Congress not to have it. And once again, this all goes back to what we were talking about with campaign finance reform. It's funny how like you can kind of find the connectors.
Connective. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll just add this, my husband, he's an artist, and he always used to say the reason men make art is because they can't have children. And I always found that kind of to be like very interesting from like a philosophical perspective, meaning like they can't create life, so they want to create something, right? So there's this idea of like you're saying, and that's what made me think of that was when you said these men want to create like something crafted in their image. It's fascinating because they've disconnected so much from the feminine. They are so overrun by this toxic masculinity that they can't even see the forest through the trees, that maybe this is just not what they're meant to do in this incarnation with what they have. And the idea that they're trying to impose this AI, which, by the way, people have said over and over and over again, like, they don't want this. They don't want this. And everybody in the comments is saying the same thing. They think they are gods, right? They think they are life givers, and they're going to create something from themselves. To your point, I'm also terrified because there is so much unchecked power and money with this billionaire class that they are living outside the realm of reality. And because no one is willing to stand up to them or check them or create boundaries, we are now in a position where we're going to now have to deal with the aftermath of this, which will be, I think, very detrimental to the human race. I don't like to sound alarmist or dramatic when I'm talking about AI, because I don't think it's useful, because I don't even think people have fully grasped even what we're dealing with now, let alone what's coming. But I think that's part of the problem, is there's been all of these advancements made, but very few of us are actually interacting with these products. And even fewer of us are interacting with them in a meaningful way and understanding their capabilities and their powers. And so you have an entire groups and segments of our population that have not even interacted with ChatGPT. And so they can't even fathom where this is already going. And so I wish I could say this could be a very exciting chapter in human history, but because we refuse to act responsibly or with boundaries in place, I think a lot of this is going to be weaponized. I think it's going to be used for very nefarious reasons. And I think, Elon Musk and the DOGE situation, to me, is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to how they're going to be exploiting AI for their own gain and for their own wealth. And I'm at a point where I do not believe that billionaires should exist. I really don't. I don't think we need more billionaires, because to me, this is where it leads, is people thinking that the world belongs to them and not to all of us. And the way they're going to utilize AI, I think, is very much reflective of that. And so that's very much my concern.
Yeah.
All right. We have a couple more things we wanted to touch on. How do you feel, Desmond? Do you feel energized to keep going?
Yeah, no, I think my phone's starting to slow down a little bit. So I wanted to get these next two topics a little,
Let's do it.
Yeah.
We're going to talk a little bit about what happened with the Trump administration and this MAHA report that just came out. That's the Make America Healthy Again report. They were citing non-existent scientific studies. There's new evidence that the White House's MAHA report, Make Our Children Healthy Again, which is the full name of it, relied on scientific research that did not exist. This is from MSNBC. After Trump and his White House team unveiled this report, the New York Times noted that the document echoes talking points Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been championed for decades. And this was among the obvious red flags. Kennedy, of course, is notorious for pushing false information. With this in mind, nobody was surprised that the White House report started crumbling under scrutiny, and this is exactly why we need a free press. The Washington Post reported that some of the report's suggestions stretched the limits of science, medical experts said. Several sections of the report offered misleading representations of findings, and this week, they actually studied this document further and said that they misinterpreted some studies and cited studies that didn't exist. And I'll give you an example. The administration's document listed epidemiologist Catherine Keyes as the first author of a study on anxiety in adolescents, except she didn't write it. And so this is just some of the alarming things. And like people are saying, given Kennedy's track record, there's no reason to assume that he would understand this. Some of his claims included that Wi-Fi caused leaky brain. And of course, anything that he says should be met with skepticism. I hate this man so much, Desmond. Every time we talk about public health, my blood, I literally have to do like breathing exercises afterwards because I get so worked up over the harm, the blood on this man's hands, and the whole regime and everyone that confirmed him to this position, well knowing that he was absolutely unqualified for this. That's like saying, hey, my car needs a mechanic. I'm going to go take it to the barista to fix it because I don't trust mechanics. You know, like it doesn't make any sense to me. What did you make of this, that they were so blatant with these citations that aren't even from real studies?
It's par for the course, Natalie.
I know.
It's unfortunately par for the course. You know, we are dealing with an administration, a regime that does not care about the truth.
Yeah.
They don't. I mean, Trump proved that the first time around. This was Trump 1.0. Does not care about the truth.
Yeah.
You know, it sounds like a broken record, but this is just about just imposing your will on society, right? Like, how can I, you know, what do I have to say in order to get the result that I want? What do I have to do in order to get the result that I want? You know, like when they changed, we were talking about this, you know, the last couple times that we've been on lives together, talking about the changes in the guidelines for, you know, the COVID vaccine, talking about like their reasonings for not showing different like CDC information. Like they don't provide reasoning for why they do what they do. And then when they do provide reasoning, it's false, right? So this is the behavior of people who believe that everything that they do should not be questioned. And if it is, they're just going to say to you whatever they think they need to say to you in order to get the conversation away from them, because they don't even feel like they have to give you the truth. And they're still going to be able to get what they want from all of this. So I see this as a bigger problem than just RFK. This is a bigger problem than just the public health sector. I mean, this is endemic across the entire administration. Like we are dealing with a current, you know, like regime that does not care about anything other than what they want to do. The end. I mean, look at it across the board. DOGE shouldn't exist. Does. These tariffs outside of Trump's boundaries. Does them anyway. They have no legal authority to send people to slave labor camps in El Salvador. We're doing it anyway. You know, like just look across the board. It doesn't matter, right? Yeah. Like whatever they want to do, they're going to do. And so I do not know what will happen next. But yeah, RFK Jr. should never have been in this position. And it makes no sense to me that he is.
Amen to everything you said. And I just want to add to, you know, I think the reason that we've gotten to this place is because we do not have universal health care. And the reason I say that is because over the last 30, 40 years, there has become such an erosion between the trust between patient and doctor, because doctors are completely overworked, completely burned out, can see you for 5 minutes, you know, gives you the same sort of diagnosis and in and out. And so you have this breakdown in trust and understanding. And so more and more patients were saying, I can't trust my doctor. I'm not being supported. I'm not being helped. I'm going to go look for information on my own. Or I can't afford this procedure. I can't pay for this, even though I've been paying for health insurance. I still can't pay for this. So I'm going to go see if there's a natural solution. And I'm not discounting naturopathy. I think there are certain values that can be found in alternative medicine. I'm a huge proponent of that when indicated, but also when indicated that you need to go see a doctor and go get an actual prescription for something that might help you. And the fact that we've had this huge breakdown in this relationship and have built up all this mistrust on both sides, it is no surprise to me that the level of disinformation that has spread because we do not have a functioning healthcare system that covers everyone for everything is why we've now landed at this point where we have this criminal running the HHS. And as we round this out, I just want to add, CBS had this story that, speaking of, you know, RFK Jr. and the nonsense, where he just said 2 days ago in a public hearing that, yes, we're no longer recommending, the CDC is no longer recommending COVID vaccine shots for pregnant people or children, healthy children. Now, head swivel, the CDC says that kids may receive COVID vaccines. This is from CBS News just earlier today. I had to read this twice because I was like, wait a second. They just said that they weren't recommending them, and now they are recommending it. They're saying CDC is calling it a shared clinical decision-making recommendation for children, means that health insurance companies will continue to be required to broadly cover the shots for this age group. And who knows who made a phone call? My guess is somebody at one of the big pharma companies was like, I don't think so. We want our bag. Whatever the reason may be, this is a good decision. Children should be getting COVID-19 shots because we very much know that COVID, in particular in children, has caused a huge array of issues, and many children are suffering from the impacts of long COVID. But this astounded me, and this once again adds to the confusion and the mistrust, because we're saying one thing, we're doing another. We're saying one thing, we're doing another, and we're doing it in rapid time.
There is obviously dysfunction at, underneath HHS, which no one's surprised with RFK being the head of it, but there's obvious dysfunction. We don't really know what's going on there because you issue something one day and then the next day you're saying something completely different. It kind of begs the question is that, like who's actually running this department? Did RFK make this decision one day and then somebody else is making a decision another day? Is he going to come back the next day and usurp that decision again? Or like you said, did some company kind of come in, like Pfizer or Moderna, someone come in and say like, hey, like we can't be having this. You got to make sure that this isn't the case. Like whatever the case may be, I think the bottom line is that there is no real organization at the HHS level right now, whether we're talking about the CDC, the FDA, whatever the case may be. And that is a terrible thing for the country as a whole. These organizations are way too important for there to be dysfunction happening at these top levels. And we all rely on these organizations to be able to do things well. And honestly, it's a little troubling to me that something as important, like as these health guidelines is being mangled to this point. Like if you were going to make decisions about this, something that people, when they go to the doctor, this is something that's incredibly, important to everybody. You walk into a doctor's office, you're expecting to get, very good advice from somebody who's had years and years of experience, and you are relying on them when it comes to telling you whether or not you are making a good decision for yourself or for your children. And these doctors rely on the CDC in order to inform all of us, right?
Yep.
So I think that when it comes to who is heading these agencies, it is paramount that if you're going to make a decision, that you absolutely know why you're making that decision. And if you are backtracking on something, then very next day, it's obvious you never knew what you were doing in the first place. This is a huge problem. That part.
Yeah. I know we've gone long tonight, and I appreciate everybody that's joined us. I just want to add, they are all practicing the RFK Jr., the private insurance industry, they are all practicing medicine without a license, right? Like he does not have a medical degree, and yet he is trying to be up on this stage telling us when and if we're even allowed to get a shot that could help prevent us from transmitting or suffering the effects from a debilitating and deadly airborne virus, right? These are people that are saying, no, you can't get that MRI. I'm your private insurer. And no, you don't really need that procedure, going against your doctor's wishes, right? So once again, it's like we have kind of lost the plot here. What is the point of a civilization if we don't take care of one another? And I know that sounds woo-woo, but I keep meditating on what is the purpose of government. And the purpose of government is not to make a few people wealthy and to let millions of people suffer. In my opinion, from my perspective, a civilization cannot continue on that way. So either our civilization dies out, or we course correct and start implementing policies that support the many and not just the privileged few, who, by the way, are going to be fine and under really any any governmental structure because they can buy their way out of it. This person said, my friend died because his insurance wouldn't approve Humira for him when it was an experimental drug. I'm so sorry. They are one of millions of people that have died because of these insane decisions being made by health insurers that have no business telling you what you should be able to do. That should be a decision between you and your doctor. If my doctor were to approve something that I needed, then I should be able to get it. Period. Like that should be kind of the start and end of it. I'm at a total loss here. I'm at a total loss. And so we need to start figuring out who we want to be as a people at the heart of all of this.
Thank you, Winter, for sharing that, by the way. That's
Yes.
got to be a really hard thing to relive in your mind as you're kind of typing that out.
Yes.
I've also had friends who have passed away, unfortunately, because of illnesses that they should not have passed away from. So it is, it's the whole system is problematic for various reasons. And it's one of the driving factors, the reasons why I want to be involved in this work is because I think that when we are not talking about it, when we are silent about it, when we're not in community discussing what's going on, what needs to change, I think these things only get worse. So
Amen.
Really appreciate everyone being here tonight. For coming through all these different topics with us. Appreciate everyone who's dropping comments, leaving hearts, people who are subscribed to us. We will be back next week with another live. I'll
have a new ring light.
For the love of God.
I really thought it was fixed, and it wasn't, guys. It wasn't. So, here we are.
Yeah.
We're making it work.
For those who came in late or didn't see everything, the playbacks will be posted here on Substack. You'll see them on YouTube with a few extra edits on them. So check us out on YouTube and on Spotify. Usually a couple weeks later. We're a little behind on Spotify right now. Make sure that you're subscribing to Natalie's Substack. You can do so at the top of the screen right now. If you're watching the playback, the link to her Substack will be in the episode description. You can click on that now. You should see her Substack link there. And her Instagram as well, for those of you who are still on that platform. She is trending up on Instagram right now.
Trying, you guys. No, we really appreciate all of the comments. And Desmond, I just love doing these lives together. I know they can be a little wild at times, but I think we covered a lot of really great stuff. And
we did.
It's really important. I'm really glad what you said, because I used to be a social worker in my previous life. And when I decided to become a journalist, you really can look at journalism as a form of social work. And I really think what we're doing here is important to continue to spread news that is both informative and gets people to think about the kind of world they want to live in and have their children live in.
Yeah. So someone says on the comments right now, how do I follow? If you click the top of the screen right now where it has like my name and Natalie's name kind of like scrolling on the top left of the screen right there, you click on that, you should be able to hit the subscribe button right there and subscribe to either one of us. Thank you everyone for watching. We will be back next week with another episode conversation. I'm not sure.
Maybe two. We might do two next week.
We might do two. But either way, just be sure that you are subscribed so you don't miss it. There'll be a push notification sent to you soon. Thank you, everyone. See you next time.
Bye, everybody.